Thank you to MusicBed for sponsoring today's video. In today's video, I'll be running through my YouTube post-production process, from organizing footage and working efficiently within Final Cut Pro, as well as color grading. I hope to provide a little bit more insight into how I edit these videos, and hopefully help any of you looking to get into the process of making YouTube videos. So if you've been thinking about starting a channel, YouTube's not going anywhere, so it's never too late to start. I thought it was too late when I started. Apparently, I was wrong. This is technically part 2 of my insight into how I make videos for YouTube. If you didn't watch part 1, I went over how I do pre-production, which is really important when it comes to working efficiently. You want to have the production process to be as streamlined as possible, and a lot of that has to do with pre-production and staying organized, so I definitely recommend you watch that part. Something you'll quickly find in this video is that I do a lot of things that you traditionally probably wouldn't want to do for a big video project that's not necessarily for YouTube, but I do these things because it simply makes the process faster for me. But I try not to sacrifice quality at the same time, so I try to find a balance between working quickly and making something I like. So I wouldn't necessarily look at this video as a standalone tutorial for how to do video editing. I'm just one person, and I'm basically showing you what works for me. It's not necessarily going to work for you, so I definitely recommend you, watch what other people do and try to find that workflow that works for you. Also, I have a bit of a cold right now, so I apologize if I sound a little muffled in this video. So before we do any video editing, we want to basically get all of the footage and assets we need to make the video and stay organized with all that stuff. That way we're not, scrambling throughout the process to find the things we need. And just staying organized is also really good practice that you should definitely do for the start of every video project. So to start this, I'll make a folder on my SSD that I usually edit off of. This is a SanDisk Extreme Pro SSD, the 4TB version. I find that's the sweet spot for working on a few projects at a time. So I'll make a folder here and I'll name this whatever the video project title is. I try not to get too caught up on this title for the folder. It can just be a general title and not necessarily the title of the video. So in this case, I'm showing you the folder I have for the video you're watching right now. In here, I have a folder for A-roll, which is basically this portion, me talking to the camera, and then I have a B-roll folder for the necessary B-roll I might have shot specifically for this video. I also have a photos folder here, not really necessary for this particular video, but a lot of my other videos obviously involve me taking pictures, so I have a folder for those photos. And then I have a folder for music, and I also have a folder for voiceover, screen recordings, as well as effects. Now at this stage, I have all the folders for the stuff I need for the video. Now it's a matter of getting that footage and those assets and putting them into their respective folders. So I'm not going to be editing a video from start to finish in this tutorial, just because that's going to be very long, and I don't think it necessarily shows a good look at how I make videos, because not every YouTube video is necessarily the same. They're all very different in their own way. So I think a general look into how I edit is probably going to be more helpful. But something I do start with every video project is use a pre-built Final Cut template. And I have to thank my friend Roman Fox, who I know many of you subscribe to here on YouTube. He helped me out big time in setting one of these up. And basically the whole sense of it is that you have this pre-built project template that has everything already laid out within the project, and you're basically just duplicating this project file at the start of every video project. So if we open it up, you can see in here on the left side all of these pre-arranged folders, and many of them are the same names as the folders I just talked about when I was organizing the files in my SSD. There's a few different ones in here though. At the top here is a folder for projects, and this is where the project timeline lives. I edit all my videos on a 4K 24 FPS timeline, so that's already set up here. And there's also this second timeline here that is set up to be a vertical video in the event that I would want to make a reel. I don't do that with every video, but it's just here in case I want to. So now I can go back to the project folder on my SSD and take all that footage and other assets and bring them into Final Cut. So now all the things I need are in Final Cut. I can get started on actually editing this video. And I typically start with the A-roll, which is, again, this portion that I'm talking to the camera. I find that it makes sense to start with A-roll because it's essentially the structure of the video. You know, me talking kind of dictates what's happening in the video majority of the time. If it's a POV, not so much, because it's mostly focused on, you know, the POV footage. I actually have a old video I did on editing POV footage, POV videos, so I'll have that linked in the description. So right here is the Sony footage, which has me talking, but since I record all of my audio separately through an external audio recorder, I need to synchronize the audio to the footage. Basically select both files and right click and click synchronize. Final Cut will create this new synchronized file, and I'll drag that onto the timeline. Now I can select the blade tool and start cutting this footage. And what I mean by that is cutting out the dead space between, you know, me talking, or the parts where I, you know, stumble or mess up talking to the camera. I want to remove all of that and be left with, you know, coherent sentences that, you know, I want in the video. I try to be as precise as I can with every cut, but, you know, as I progress through the edit of the video, I can, you know, fine-tune those jump cuts a bit more. So once I finish cutting the A-roll, I'll be left with something like this, just a long stream of just me talking. This is the general outline of the video. I'm not going to have it, you know, placed like this, obviously. I need to start to implement B-roll and gaps between sentences just to, you know, make the pacing of the video something, you know, that you can watch. Now it's time to start placing the B-roll into the footage, and this is when the fun starts to happen. It's where I can get a bit more creative with how I want the video to come out, and it's really important in this phase to be thinking about the pacing of the video. So I'm sort of constantly watching the video over and over as I do this, as I add B-roll into the edit. The pacing in a video is such an important piece of the viewing experience, and you can control that pacing through how you incorporate B-roll into the edit. Something I like to do a lot in my video edits is add a cinematic sequence, both at the start and throughout the video as well. I feel like they sort of bring the viewer back in. They sort of act as intermissions. So, you know, when a subject or a topic changes within a video, I might have, you know, a few clips that, you know, break up the pace of the video, so it's just not me, you know, constantly talking. You know, adding B-roll is also another great way to sort of hide little mistakes that might have happened within the A-roll. So maybe there's a jump cut because I messed up what I was saying and it just doesn't look good on camera. I could cover that with a B-roll shot and you wouldn't even know that a jump cut happened. So using B-roll is a great tool to fix those mistakes, and I'll be looking out for those as I edit the video. But, you know, at the same time, I'm keeping an emphasis on the pacing. So right here I have an example of a video timeline that has A-roll as well as B-roll laid out. This is from one of my latest videos where I shot with the flash. At this point I like to start incorporating music into the edit because music plays such an important role in the overall flow and pacing of the video. Something I like to do in a lot of my edits is match the rhythm of the song and have, you know, B-roll have that correlate to, you know, the tempo of the song. So when a beat changes, the video that you're seeing changes to the next shot. For example, there's a point in this song where the beat changes, and I like to use that tempo change as a way to go from one scene into another. And that's what I did here in this edit, and I think it really helps the overall flow of the video. You know, little changes like this, they might not seem like a lot, but when you're watching the video, you sort of notice it, and it really makes the viewing experience that much better. So I get most of my music from MusicBed. They are sponsoring today's video, but I've been using their music long before they even reached out about this sponsorship. I just find their selection of songs are that much higher in quality compared to the other options out there. MusicBed works differently than other music licensing platforms out there in that they're not royalty free but rights managed. This is great because they find extremely talented musicians, bands, and composers who pour their hearts into their work, and that only makes your projects even stronger. We listen to music and videos as much as we watch them, so it's sort of half the viewing experience. So, good music is something, I never want to overlook when it comes to editing. Within MusicBed, I can create separate folders and organize the different songs I like for each video project. And when it's time to start editing the video, I can download them and bring them right into Final Cut. So if you're interested in checking out MusicBed for yourself, hit the link in the description. And I also have a code for you to use. You can simply use the code Faisal and you'll get a free month off an annual subscription. So really at this point, it's about playing around with the different songs that I've chosen and seeing what works best. Sometimes a song doesn't really match the B-roll I have already laid out, or sometimes I need to adjust the B-roll to match the flow of the song. Once I'm happy with the overall flow of the video and what's starting to come together, I can finally get into color grading. Although I'll be honest, sometimes I start color grading way earlier than this, but we'll keep that a secret between you and me. Okay, so time for the fun part, color grading. Although technically I wouldn't actually call what I do color grading, because really all I do here is use a Rec 709 conversion LUT that I made specifically for the S-Log3 footage that I work in, shooting with the Sony cameras, and I'll tweak the color and intensity of the LUT as I see fit depending on the footage. I also add a few film effects, grading effects that sort of help accentuate the filmic look that I'm sort of going for. This is the absolute bare minimum when it comes to color grading, and a lot of actual colorists or filmmakers would not even consider this color grading because color grading can be this really in-depth process using entirely other different programs to do it. But when it comes to my workflow and making YouTube videos, almost every week, I need to work as quickly as I can, as efficiently as I can. I can't spend too much time on this process because it's honestly something you can easily spend way too much time in. That's why I use LUTs, and I use this LUT specifically that I made because it's perfect for the S-Log footage that I mostly shoot in. I don't have to load up an entirely different program, DaVinci Resolve, or spend hours working on a single frame to get the colors the way I want it to. I can just slap this on and tweak it a little here and there, and I'm good to go. I prefer to use my LUT because it simply works. So here I have some sample Sony a7S III footage shot in S-Log3, and I'm just gonna show you how this LUT changes the look of this footage. Before I do that though, it's important to mention getting a good exposure in camera is really important to using LUTs, but especially if you're shooting an S-Log3. So with S-Log3, this is the log profile that I use. It's picture profile 8 in the camera, although I've switched the color profile or color mode to Pro. I found this works better with the LUT that I created, but when I'm out in the field shooting, I need to make sure that I'm overexposing S-Log3. So I'll overexpose by around 1.7 to 2 stops, and essentially that will be a properly exposed S-Log3. When you work with a LUT, you don't have as much leeway in terms of fixing exposure and whatnot, so it's important to have more emphasis on getting exposure right in the field. So the footage is here in the timeline. I like to add a adjustment layer. Next, I'll go into effects, add the custom LUT to the adjustment layer, and then add the LUT. And as you can see, just adding this LUT really creates an image I'm actually happy to use right off the bat. Now, I typically wouldn't just leave it as is. I'll spend a bit more time and tweak, the tones. Sometimes the LUT adds too much contrast, so I can dial it back a bit. But I also like to work in the color wheels menu and add in some color to, the shadows, highlights, or midtones as I see fit. I find that adding a bit of a greenish hue to the shadows makes more of a filmic look, not necessarily trying to mimic any certain film stock here, but if you do end up using my LUT for your Sony footage, really recommend you take this extra step and fine tune it to your own liking. Last thing I do here is add a grain overlay to the footage, and I found this free overlay online. It's basically a moving film grain, and I'll set the blend mode to overlay and bring down the intensity to a level that isn't so intense. Subtlety is key here. You really don't want to overdo this. And there you have it. That's a basic look into my color grading process. There's really no secret sauce here, other than, whatever magic is in the Sony cameras and the colors it produces. This LUT works really well with S-Log3, and it just really simplifies the process for me. Now at this point, the majority of the edit is complete. I can add in text here and there as it needs. If I needed to have photo examples in the video, I'll have those photos placed. All videos are going to be different, but this is generally the approach I take when it comes to editing mine. So I hope this video helps any of you who are just interested in seeing how I do it, or if you're looking to start making YouTube videos for your own channel. Again, it's not too late to start. So if there's any questions, specific things I didn't mention in this video that you're curious about, please leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you as best as I can. But yeah, with that said, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.